Good morning. Welcome to the February 20th, 2020 Board of Assessor meeting. I am Acting Chairman Bob Early, and to my right is a Board of Assessor member Paul Bergeron. To my left is Deputy Corporate Counsel Celia Leonard, and to her left is Kim Kleiner, Director of Administrative Service. This meeting is recorded by a written transcript and audio tape. Please direct all testimony into a microphone and only one person to speak at a time. If you do not already have a copy of today's agenda, please feel free to get a copy located by the entrance to this room. Today we will be hearing various requests as listed on the agenda. Please note that decisions may be taken under advisement and involved parties will be notified at a later date. Per the City of Nashua bylaws, a minimum of 2 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. In addition, this board will hear any and all scheduled cases as long as quorums of 2 voting board members are present at this meeting. Any citizen has the right to contest the decision that this board makes. To appeal a municipality's decision on an abatement application, a taxpayer may appeal to either the Board of Tax and Land Appeals or to the Superior Court, but not to both. Please contact the Assessing Department for more information. Please direct all testimony to this board and not to anyone in the audience. If you have questions, they are to be directed to the board, and we will do our best to get them answered. When directing testimony to this board, please announce your name and address clearly for the record. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. If you need to have a conversation, please feel free to step out into the hallway. Ms. Cameron, are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are none.
There are none?
There are none.
There aren't. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? Okay, this is the third meeting of 2020. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the non-public and public Board of Assessors meeting from February 6, 2020?
I would move to approve the minutes of the non-public and public Board of Assessor meetings from February 6, 2020.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. The next motion is to approve the Board of Assessors decision report from the February 6, 2020 meeting as presented.
I would move to approve the Board of Assessor decision report from the February 6, 2020 meeting as presented.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. New business, Ms. Kimberly Kleiner, Administrative Services Director, regarding the division update.
Good morning.
Morning.
The assessing department has remained busy, both with our normal course of business, building permit capture, property reviews, new exemption and credit applications, and also with preparation for the full measure and list revaluation. Last evening, February 19th, the Finance Committee approved the contract for the full measure and list. The contract will be on the agenda now for the February 25th, next Tuesday night, for the Board of Aldermen. On March 2nd at 4 p.m., the Board of Assessors will hold a special meeting in the City Hall auditorium. Representatives from the New Hampshire Department of Revenue, along with staff from Vision Government Solutions and the National Assessing Department, will hold a public startup meeting for that project. We will review the contract and the process of data collection for the full measure and list. We encourage members of the public to attend. The Assessing Department in Vision has been meeting, preparing data collection guidelines, revaluation materials, and some of those will be presented at the March 2nd meeting. The Vision team may begin data collection, depending on that startup meeting, as early as March 3rd. Again, we ask our residents to visit our website, where a page dedicated to this project is being updated with information as soon as it is available. We have received a few internal applications for the Assessing Specialist 2 position, formerly held by Lynn Cameron. Louise Brown, Administrative Supervisor, and I will be holding interviews early next week. David Cornell, our consultant on the management reporting system, has been busy. The last 2 weeks has successfully connected Power BI to our internal CAMA system, and he will remain on site over the next few weeks completing those reports. The initial upgrade of our CAMA system to AP5 has been completed. The final step, testing and confirmation of our MS1 report, is currently underway. The MS1 report, annually due to the New Hampshire Department of Revenue, is the City of Nashua's formal reporting to the state on all property values, exemptions, and credits, and is used in the calculation of the city's tax rate. We expect this final step to be completed within the next week, with the system going live by the end of the month. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Kim. The next item, communications, there are none, so we'll go to staff items. Amanda Mazzarol has some credits.
Good morning, Louise Brown with the Assessment
hi,
Department. I'm
Louise.
going to be presenting the credits for Amanda.
Okay,
So before you is a list of veterans credits with a recommendation of approval.
can we approve both vote on the approvals and the denials at once, or,
Separately.
okay? Can I get a motion to,
I would move to approve the 9 veterans credit recommendations submitted by the
I'll second,
assessing staff.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Then the second item is a list of veterans credits with a recommendation of denial for various reasons.
Any motion?
Sure, I would move to deny the veterans credits in accordance with the recommendations of the assessing department, the 7 of them.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Louise. Next, Doug, you have some abatement withdrawals. What's this list here, I guess? I have it.
Oh, okay.
Morning, Doug.
Good morning, members. I have 2 groups of withdrawals that have come into our department since the last meeting. The first group, these are all 2018 appeals. The first group is known as Nashua Linear Retail Properties. I have 6 for which the tax representative has asked that they be withdrawn and has filed with the Board of Tax and Land Appeals a withdrawal. The second group is a group of 8 in total from Whiting Building LLC. The attorney representing the owner of that property has asked that these properties be withdrawn and has filed with the Board of Tax and Land Appeals a withdrawal.
Okay, okay, any questions, Paul?
No.
I don't have any questions. Can I get a motion to approve the withdrawals as presented by Doug?
I would so move.
I'll second that. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did Doug have an abatement?
Non-public.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah.
Gary here? Gary, you have one abatement, the one we spoke of at last meeting. We're just going to formalize the vote on that, I guess.
That is correct.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the assessment settlement for 2018 and 2019 for the property located at 7 Quinto Drive to $325,000?
I would so move.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Next up is appointments. Ms. Laurie Delano. Laurie?
Good morning, Laurie Delano, 41 Berkeley Street. Couple of items here. I was going to address the contract. I had some concerns, but I'm going to wait till the meeting in March when you hold your special meeting, which will be perfect to address some of those concerns. I talked a little bit at the last meeting about policy and the opportunity to develop policy, and I'd like to address another policy issue, which is the handling of our records down in assessing. It used to be, the practice in the office used to be that any assessing record, property record files, were not allowed to leave the office. Angelo had a strict rule that all records stayed in the assessing office, and anyone who wanted a record in City Hall could obtain a copy, but the original was always maintained in the office. When I started looking at records more than a year ago, I know I could not take anything out of the office. Even if I wanted to go outside and sit at the table where there was a chair and a table to work on it, you couldn't do it. I was told, no, the records have to stay here. My property file has been completely mishandled by the city because they do not protect the records here any longer. John Duhamel did not enforce a policy that records couldn't be removed. And more than a year ago, when my property was being reviewed by KRT in October, I went to assessing to get my property record file, and it had been taken by John Griffin up to the CFO's office. It stayed up there for quite a while. It's referenced in emails, and information in my report is in my property record file is referenced in some emails, and I believe information that was in there, it's now lost. I've been told that information is now lost from my file. No, they can't locate a hearing sheet, and they can't locate the packet that we provided to KRT and the city we provided to that had comparables to address the concerns we had with our property assessment. So it ends up in John Griffin's office for upwards of a month. I objected to that with John Duhamel. I said I didn't think it was right that a CFO should have my file. He's not an assessor. It makes its way back down to assessing. When Ms. Kleiner comes in, my abatement goes missing. It's not available. It's not downstairs. I then, interestingly enough, during that time in December, the mayor had been concerned about his property record file being looked at by me, and he went and took his property record file and he carried it for 6 weeks. He announced at the Board of Alderman meeting, I've been keeping my file on me for the last 6 weeks, anticipating that a member of the public would address it, and I did address it, end of November or beginning of December. And when I went down to assessing a couple days later to get his file, it wasn't available, it wasn't there. Okay? So nobody should have their file on them. I can't walk around and leave City Hall with my file. Then I went to assessing in August to look at the KRT abatements, and they were all on Cheryl Wally's desk. And when I walked in, I didn't expect to get them, but they were all sitting there. I obtained all the KRT abatements. A few days later, I came back because all of the information that was there, I hand wrote notes for tables I was trying to produce to look at how abatements were handled. And one of my written notes I couldn't read. So I went back to get the KRT abatement file, and I had been told by staff that Kim had taken them all up to her office and they were no longer in the assessing office or available. That should not happen. And they weren't available. I couldn't get them. They, you know, now, and actually, I went to assessing within the last month to get my abatement file from my attorney. He wanted a copy of everything in it. I went down to assessing. I was told by Lynn, it's up in legal. And sure enough, legal had the original file up in their office. Not a copy, but the original file. And when I went up there to look at it, I was pretty directly scolded by Attorney Bolton for being up there. It's inappropriate for me to be up there because I have counsel. But I was only up there to get the record. That's a public record. That's not just my public record. It's owned by everyone in the city. So we are no longer safeguarding records. We did a photo op where I think Greg took all of these property files stored in John Duhamel's office, not even in the fireproof vault, that were being collected, wheeled them up to the mayor's conference area, and took a picture. Did my stuff fall out when you took them out of downstairs? Did we lose the papers there? We don't know. All I know is information is now missing from my file, and my file has been out of the assessing office repeatedly. I have called other assessing offices and talked with other chiefs. They treat those records sacred. They don't leave the office, and I don't know if the DRA has regulations. I'm going to look into that, and the ASB on how property record files or data should be maintained in an office. Maybe they don't, maybe they do, I'll figure it out. But we should have a policy whereby nobody gets to walk around with the record files, or take them. Take a copy. Copy's fine. But the originals, what you're doing is removing information that belongs to the public. Anyone can come in and look at my property record file. It's not just mine, it belongs to everyone in the city. And they have a right to access it. And when individuals remove it, that right is gone. So I would like you to consider some type of policy or practice where this does not happen any longer. Because nobody, the experienced people in assessing, who I look at, Louise and Greg, they're not speaking up to say, we don't take our records out of the assessing office. Nobody's speaking up to stop it. Everyone's going along with it. And it's not a good practice. You know, I'm not happy that my information is missing. And I will never know what happened to it. I want to address with you a property, a concern I have with a property. Okay, let's see. It was on and it's not. Okay, it's coming back on. Can we make it larger? Is that show on, I don't know if that shows. Okay, it's losing its signal on and off, so we'll just have to go with it. Okay, it self-adjusts. It did. Yeah. Okay, this is a property at 500 Main Street. And this property is particularly interesting to me because I went and pulled the permits on this. It had a permit in 2004. And the permit in 2004 was to replace a boiler. That's what's on the permit down in the office. The permit has remained open with a check back for 2018. So that's 14 years. Another permit was pulled down in the permit office in 2010, which was to replace the garage and rebuild it to a bigger footprint and add a half story. So it became a story and a half with storage up above. That never even made it to the property record card. So I don't know what that's about. But this house is noted in the comments section. Now you can see 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. This property has been reviewed. And in 15, 16, 17, and 18, it's only been an exterior review. When you look at GIS on the exterior, in 17, a large deck was put off the back. It's not on the card. So I'm questioning if anyone really went and did an exterior review, because that deck and that landing should have been caught. It's big. And I only suspected, because it's a ranch house that on a fairly large lot, 1.3 acres, probably had a deck or a patio in the back. And it did. I brought up GIS, had a big deck, maybe 250, 300 square feet. I don't know how you missed that, but GIS pictures going back to 2017 show the footings going in, the sonotubes. If you went in 17 and you would expect it to be taxed in 18, it's not on the card. But the other interesting thing is there's a check back in 18. They went in 18. But on the notes section, the last note says added air conditioning, check back in 2018, under construction. This property has been listed as under construction for years, with internal work going on, but nobody's getting in. And there's no note in the comment section that they're actually talking to the owner. They seem to be getting information that it's 25% done, 50% done, whatever. But there's no indication that that's happening. This is a great property to ask your legal office, when do you take action? They have liked to say, Attorney Bolton, we'll do something about this. If you have a property owner that has a permit open for 14 years on construction, and you're not getting in for 5 or 6 years, when do you stop believing that it's still under construction and assess it? The other thing is, it was supposed to be checked back in 18. It's checked back with no note. It's 19 goes by, they never go back. 20 is here now, and it's still got an under construction depreciation of 25%. So this is really high. I don't understand why we keep that on the property record card. So there's a story here, and I think we should understand what the story is, but I view this as a mishandled property. The other one is a property that is a duplex owned by the same family. And it was a totally rebuilt duplex. They purchased the property, tore it down, put in a new foundation, put up a brand new duplex. That's fine.
What's the address on that?
2 Marker, M-A-R-K-A-R, 2 Marker Street. And a matter of fact, here's a picture of it. You can see. It's a newly built, newly constructed. This is the 2017 GIS picture as of 4/15/17, the month of annual inventory. Okay, and when you go back and you look at 16, you see the foundation poured, a brand new foundation, and then 17, you got the whole house up. Okay, it doesn't mean the interior is finished, but the house is up. If you see, it says in the notes section, we removed under construction and we completed the project for 2019. But when you look in the depreciation section, the under construction code is never removed. And it's still getting a 15% discount. That takes $30,000 off the value of the property. It concerns me when I see this because you're in Assess Pro, you're putting a note in. Why are we not taking the depreciation off and rerunning it? These are 2 examples, and I could give you 20 more, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to continue to post things out on the web like this and bring these up as attention items because they're concerning to me. I'm fighting for equity, and this is what I see in my city. It's unacceptable. The other item I wanted to just briefly talk to you about is swimming pools. I put a post up on pools, and I asked John Duhamel a year ago in January why the yard items by KRT were doubled. It was pools, tennis courts, and other yard items were doubled. And John said to me, you're going to have to wait until the USPAP comes out. I addressed yard items at this meeting, and I met with Kim Kleiner, and I talked to her about these yard items. Why did they double? What was happening, there's minutes and notes that show that KRT was going to be invited in to talk to the public. You folks were going to let the public talk to KRT. You canceled that. And we never had an opportunity to talk to KRT. So we could never figure out why this was done. So I believe somebody up here knows the answer to that question, and I think you ought to answer it for the public. But what's happened with the pools is you had a member of the community that filed an abatement on a pool. I didn't even know this member of the community had a pool, okay? When I talked to John Duhamel in January of 2019, I was just digging through data, looking at these yard items saying, wow, these are so weird. These don't even make sense. I owned a pool in Litchfield, and I went back over there and looked at my 1995 pool on my card, and it's assessed for like 10 grand. pools in Nashua have gone up to 25 to 45,000 for assessments. It's absurd. This individual went to the second informal hearing and had her informal hearing sheet, which I got a copy of, and they wrote, pools too high need to be changed. Cool, okay? My understanding, and based on the emails I received from the city, the assessors thought the pools were too high. Gary and Mike thought these residential pools were ridiculous. And in fact, Gary had Mike change this property owner's pool. Take it down, okay? Then there was a series of emails where Louise Brown is saying, hey, this assessor could get fired for doing that. We've fired people for that, taking down a single pool. And we can't do that. Then there's some redacted emails from John Duhamel to the assessor. And then all of a sudden, the pool value is put back on the property card. The issue there, and the community member was called into John Duhamel's office, and he said, hey, you can't change a single pool. You got to change all the pool, you got to change the pool tables and treat all the pools the same. Well, that kind of makes sense. And he said, I can't do that. I can't change the pool tables. At the time of that meeting, I really questioned what was going on, because he is the one who changed the Building Code 72 tables. Right at that time, Greg is contacting John Duhamel saying, I've run a back of the envelope kind of analysis, quick analysis. These Building Code 72s are way too high. Can you take it down to 110? John says, sure. He goes into the tables. He asks KRT, do you mind if I drop these? KRT says, go ahead. He drops them to 110. That's fine. But then he tells a homeowner, a residential homeowner, I can't help you. I'm sorry. This can't be fixed. It's as if you're putting the screws to all the residential property owners. KRT has said, pools are for rich people, and the rich people with pools in Nashua are going to be slammed. And that's what you did. Now, when KRT came in and did abatements, they used one pooled property as an example, and they depreciate. The pool is on the property record card for 40 grand. It's a gunite pool. When they applied it to a sales grid and looked at it, they put it at 15. That's the max they would give it. I happen to agree that that's the proper assessment number. I just had an appraisal done, and I talked to a professional appraising company, and they said to me, we will never place a pool above 16, and the conditions have to be right for that. Like, what's the size of the lot? We have heard our assessors say, our residential assessors say, that pools affect the sale of a home in a negative manner. When the assessor said that, I did some research. I found the assessor's statements were true. The time on the market extends when you have a swimming pool, because a lot of people don't want them. And if you have a pool in a yard that's a very small footprint where you take out your green space, or there's safety issues with children, they're even harder to sell. So this concept that pools add value between, 10 to 15 makes sense to me. And it's what I see over in the town I left, 10 grand. Okay? Your pools now are in neighborhoods that are all ranch neighborhoods that have in-ground pools, and they're putting 30, 40, 42,000 on these pools. That's a massive adjustment on the assessment that's going on swimming pools. And I'm upset because I feel like this city lied to the public. First of all, they should have addressed it. The assessors should have stood up and said, this is absurd. And they did in a way, but they backed off. And this individual who wanted the pool fixed is in an appeal process. I think the BTLA will grant it. I really do, because it's so ridiculous. But you should do the right thing and fix the pool tables for everyone. I got a list of pools in the city, but it involves businesses as well. Residential, I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe 600, 700, 800 swimming pools. If you could change Building Code 72 and knock assessed values down 24 million, you ought to be able to change swimming pools, which isn't going to be much more than that, and help the residential property owners that got slammed. They shouldn't have to wait 5 years. This was just handled wrong, and it makes me very distrustful of the office when I see what was done and no assessor stood up to take a corrective action. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, do we have any comments by members of the board?
No, no.
I do not. We do have a non-public session.
Like a motion to,
Yeah, I'm looking for the sheet. Do you have it?
I do.
You want to read it?
Sure. I move to go into non-public for two reasons. First, to discuss matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2C. Second, under 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2(1), for the consideration, or the, quote, consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel, either in writing or orally, to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present, close quote.
I'll second that motion. Do you have any discussion?
No discussion, no.
All those in favor, we have to take a roll call.
Okay.
Paul?
Aye.
Bob Early says aye, the motion carries. We're in non-public session.